Hi, this is Zack Ward, otherwise known as the infamous Scut Farkus, and you are checking out Scoop B Radio. Enjoy.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Another edition of Scoop B Radio. It's only right we bring in some friends of the program, none other than my main man, Zack Ward, better known as Scut Farkus, on the infamous show that you're probably watching on rerun right now, all Christmas Day. Do I call you Zack or do I call you Farkus? Which do you prefer?
Well, my name is Zack, but the character's name is Scut Farkus. So for this, you can call me either one you like.
I like it better as Zack, man. To be honest with you, the show brings back many memories, but for me, I'm interested in learning the character of you. What was the process for casting of your character? Did you audition? What happened?
It was one of those typical experiences back in the 80s. It was what we have named a cattle call, meaning hundreds upon hundreds of kids show up, and then they walk in, and they, like for me, there was probably 500 kids there. They go, you walk in, you audition in front of a VHS camera, which was brand new technology at the time. And my lines were, I was the sidekick at the time. I was the toady. So it was, get over here. Nah, you're Aunt Tilly. Thanks, next. And I went back 5 or 6 times. Then I finally got the role. Although the character was Scut Farkus, at that point, Scut Farkus was the toady. So that was the job I was going to do. I had very few lines. And then I got into wardrobe. And I met Yano Anaya, who plays Grover Dill. And then for the first time, I met Bob Clark, who was a director. And we came to set, and he saw us standing beside each other, and I'm about a foot taller than Yano. And he realized that, and he said, oh, okay, you get his lines, he gets your lines. And so Scut Farkus went from being the toady to being the bully. And now I'm a national treasure. Yay for me. So that's how it all happened.
You are a national treasure, and for a myriad of reasons, but I was blessed to visit the neighborhood, the home of the museum of where A Christmas Story took place in Cleveland. Was the thing that kind of threw me off was it was taped in Cleveland, but there were so many marriages to Indiana. Was it just supposed to be this middle America? Why was Cleveland? It was Cleveland Street, but do you know why Cleveland was never the actual city or the area where it took place?
Yeah. So it's a fun thing when you get into the world of making films. I know a lot of what you do as well as with amazing sports athletes, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of basketball players, and so when you see one team playing against another team, they're on the same court. But imagine in our world in filmmaking, that court could be in 3 different cities. Those players might never actually interact with each other. And when it's all edited together, you would never know. So the original book was written by Gene Shepard, and it's called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash. And the book is based upon 30, 40 years of his radio shows and stories that he would tell. Mm-hmm. And then he wrote the script, and then he does the narration in the movie. But his original stories were based in Hammond, Indiana. So it took place in Hammond, Indiana in the story. However, when they were what we call location scouting for a place to shoot the movie, Cleveland was a great location. It still had that old time Rust Belt feel to it, and unfortunately, it was going through a very bad recession at the time. Cleveland was actually pretty dark place back then, and it had the tax incentives, so they could shoot there inexpensively, get tax incentives for all the exterior shots, and then they went to Toronto, and everything that takes place inside the house is shot on a soundstage, as well as all the flashbacks of fantasy sequences. So yeah, they shoot pieces here in Cleveland and shoot pieces in Toronto, and then the school. The exterior of the school was shot in St. Catharines, Ontario. So production has to bounce around depending upon the locations that are being used.
How come Scut Farkus never went to class?
Well, there you go. It's one of those interesting background stories you look into. And Gene Shepard talked about Farkus. He talked about Farkus's father being what he called a blue-jawed man, meaning he had a 5 o'clock shadow all the time and apparently a guttural accent. On my own research, the name Scut, S-C-U-T, it's not Scott.
Yeah.
Gene Shepard was actually of Irish descent, and in Gaelic, Scut means cow diarrhea. So if you step in a scut, or you call a kid a wee scut, you're calling them a little shit. And hopefully I didn't offend anybody, but
No.
but I think the way they put together and the way Gene Shepard made the name was an amalgam of his own background and making it like the character's name is basically Shitty Farkus. And so if you think about the fact that the kid had yellow eyes and green teeth, he wasn't really taken care of that well and might have had scurvy or liver disease. So he's basically, his parents were too busy doing whatever they were doing to look after him. So he was basically an abused child, which is kind of sad. But yeah, that's why he was such a bully.
Now, the yellow eyes, was that food coloring? That's not your natural eye color?
The yellow eyes didn't happen. It was all just the power of narration. If you look closely, my eyes were the same green they are now.
Okay. Narration is a powerful thing because it could shape the mind of
Yes, it is.
people to believe that it is.
Exactly. That's why eyewitness reports of a crime are 80% of the time 100% wrong.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Couple of questions before we get into A Christmas Story 2, because I got some questions there. Zack Ward joins us. You, that infamous scene where Ralphie kicked your ass, how many times did you guys tape that scene?
Gosh, I don't know. It took all day. It took all day to do that. And it was, I mean, honestly, I was a 13-year-old kid. It was a lot of fun. I felt like I was being a stuntman, which was pretty cool when you're 13 and you want to be Evel Knievel or the Bionic Man. So yeah, it was pretty cool. They dug out an area in the dirt behind me and put in a mattress, and they covered it with fake snow. So when I got hit and I go backwards, I'm able to land on the mattress, and then he's throwing all the punches at me, and he never hit me. He was an absolute professional, but he had the mittens on strings, and the mittens were slapping the crap out of me. So if you look at my face, I'm just being pimp slapped over and over again.
Yeah, it seemed like it was all in fun, but again, the perception and the narration can give it the framing of more than it is. That scene, or the multiple scenes within that school, and whether it's snowing and more, were definitely enamoring to anyone, whether young or old, and watching it. Out of all of the other young people that were in that film, how many of you all knew each other before the movie? And did you stay in touch with a lot of them after?
I didn't know any of them before I shot the film, and I did not stay in touch with any of them until 1995. And that's when I was doing a TV series called Boogie's Diner. And Scotty Schwartz reached out to me randomly, which was hilarious. I was literally on stage shooting, and then one of the people from the production office came down and said there was a phone call for me. And so I went up to the offices, and Scotty Schwartz was like, "Zack, it's Scotty. How are you? I'm calling from New York City. I thought you got a new series." I mean, he's a short little man with the biggest balls in the world. He's awesome. And now, I've known those guys for 40 years, but for the last 20, we've been Yeah, yeah. Last 25, going on 30 years, because the movie's 40 years old, but we've been relatively close for about 30 years. And that's, first it was Scotty and I, then, then it was Ian, and then it was RD who played Schwartz, and then it was Yano and Naya came back into the fold. So now it's an amazing experience to have all of us together, and now Peter's back part of it after we did A Christmas Story Christmas. So it's an amazing experience to have friends that are like brothers to you that you've known since you were 13 years old.
The movie came out in 1983. That was 40 years ago. This year.
Yeah.
The movie in 83 was supposed to have been taking place in the 1940s.
Yes.
And the movie that came out, the sequel in 2022, was supposed to be in 1970. $1 million question.
Yes.
Did it feel like the 40s or did it feel like the 70s? Because to me, it did.
To you, it did or did not?
Did not.
Which one?
I could see 83 taking place in the 40s, but it felt like 83. But again, being a child and seeing it and then being an adult seeing it, I can see the 40s more than I can the 2022 one being in the 70s. I guess it's because the kids look modern, but the dress kind of off. And that's in both movies.
Okay. Well, so I would say in the original film where it was supposed to take place in the 1940s, I think it landed the vibe, acting wise and production design wise, really well. I think it looks and feels like something from that time. Mm-hmm. In the 2022 one, I understand what you mean by saying that the kids in that feel more modern. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's an interesting statement because you look at who Bob Clark cast in the first movie. You know, you look at Peter Billingsley as Ralphie and how delightfully uncomfortable he is. The way he talks, the kind of rambling stutter that he has going on, and how odd Schwartz is. Go ahead, smartass. I've done a bad day yet. And he's got the big goofy teeth and this goofy looking ears. And then you look at me with my braces and my broken teeth and an odd looking kid. And then you look at Yano and Naya, odd looking kid. Scotty Schwartz, odd looking kid. We look like kids. We look like real kids. Mm-hmm. Now, when they did the Christmas Story musical and they released it on Fox, it was like with Matthew Broderick, and it was a live musical.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it sucked, dude. It was just the actual musical itself is fantastic, and it's touching, and it's funny, and it's wonderful. The musical on Fox Television was so bad. It literally opens up with like a Katy Perry ripoff song, and the kid who plays me is so handsome. He looks like a little Chris Hemsworth, and that's the problem. Is children nowadays are so hyper aware of their own appearance, and because they're involved in social media and they're looking at cameras and looking at selfies since they're toddlers. That like the kid who played me looked like an Abercrombie and Fitch model. I did not. I looked like a jackass. I had a very punchable face. I looked like the kid you wanted to punch, and you knew would beat the crap out of you, and people had nightmares over me. These kids nowadays, I'm sorry, but they're so overly self-aware about their appearance that they don't ever get lost in the moment of their performance.
Right.
So they're too goddamn pretty. Kids don't need to be pretty.
Yeah.
Be kids. And that's how we were cast. I think the other difference is, and if you're watching A Christmas Story Christmas, the really stark moment of comparison, and I don't want to give any spoilers away because I actually really like the movie, and I'll tell you why in a moment.
I did too.
Okay, good. So, wait, where's the camera? The camera's over here. All right, so I'm trying to make eye contact with you looking at my phone. Sorry, people. Anyways, but at the very end of the film, they have a shot. And then that shot fades into footage from the original movie. So in A Christmas Story Christmas, there's a shot that fades into footage from the original Christmas Story. And you see the difference side by side of 35 millimeter film and also then shot on digital format. Now they use the Alexa LF, which is a large frame sensor, and it's a top end camera, and it's a brilliant cinematic camera, and they used anamorphic lenses. Sure, but the resolution and the saturation is texturally different to the eye. It's the reason why people like Tarantino can use 35 millimeter because there is something in the footage, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't shoot things on digital, but there is a textural difference and therefore an emotional connection to it that's very different. It feels not as special because you watch crap on your phone that's in digital on YouTube and on your TikToks and on the Instagram, and I do it too, man. But because it's disposable content, and so it doesn't feel precious the same way film does. So that's one big reason. Another one is the difference in the children being so self-aware that their timing. Let's put it this way: do you have any kids?
No.
Neither do I. But you've been around children, right?
Of course. Nieces, nephews, cousins, all that.
Great, awesome. So we all know what kids are like when they're 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. And you talk to them about Christmas, and they get excited about something, or they're talking about Santa Claus. Okay? Now, no spoilers here, and if there's any children listening, go away. 3, 2, 1. Santa Claus isn't real. And at a certain point, children realize that. And when they're little kids and they're like, is Santa coming? And you see it in their eyes, the genuine nature of their question. And then how really involved they're in it. What it means. Then they get a little older and they're 9, 10, 11. They know there's no Santa Claus. And they ask, but is Santa going to give me the presents? And they make that stupid face. The stupid face that is, I know that if I try to make my cute face, mommy and daddy will give me the toys that I want. They're manipulating and negotiating. And that face is unappealing. That face feels disingenuous. That face makes us want to slap the kid and give them nothing.
Right.
We know that they're just playing a game to get everything they want. And so now we're all involved in the big lie. And that feels gross.
Right.
Disgusting. And you'd rather go, hey, really, Susie, you're 10. You know there's no Santa Claus. Let's knock this off, huh? Because it's gross and it's just disgusting. But the child at 4 and 5 and 6, the genuine nature of their question, of their desire, of their hope that's in their eyes is compelling and beautiful.
Sure.
That's the difference in the performance. If you look at the original Christmas Story, those kids are rarely acting. Yes, we're in front of the camera. Yeah, we're saying lines. But there's a lot of just being stupid kids. You know what I mean?
No,
it's not polished. It's not like, oh, this will be on my Instagram later and everybody will give me 1,000 likes. Now, I'm not blaming the children who are in A Christmas Story Christmas at all.
Right.
I think there are certain moments in it that they did a great job. One of my favorites is the kid who plays Peter, Ralphie's son. When they're in the hospital, and they're in the waiting room, and there's a a large, kind of fat guy with his hand stuck in something. And just the look on the kid's face is hilarious. Like, it's one of my favorite moments in the movie. It cracks me up. But I believe that you can't go back in time. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
No.
So, trying to find a child who is not overexposed to the process and is not, gee, mom, gee, dad, do you think Santa will give me my present this year? Pandering to the camera because they've been taught from such an early age what it is that is expected of them.
Right. Yeah.
Just like AI art. It's regurgitating something that came before, as opposed to an organic, realistic response. Like, for example, this conversation. I'm going into an area that's making you slightly uncomfortable. Good. Great. And there's going to be people out there who didn't like the fact that I said there's no Santa Claus. That's real.
Yeah.
That would not be generated in an AI script on ChatGPT. Nor does it make it feel like what you were expecting. But those are the up and down points that create a dynamic that gets you interested and percolate in your brain and bring you in and make you remember a moment, as opposed to just getting exactly what you expected every goddamn time. So you watch another Marvel movie that you forget the second it's over because it's the same oatmeal.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, look, you're making a movie. Well, when we made the first Christmas Story, and look, I do not have a huge role in it. I don't take responsibility for the success of the film. It's Gene Shepard, it's Bob Clark, it's Peter Billingsley, it's Darren McGavin, it's Melinda Dillon, it's the DP, it's the production designer, it's the score. Zack Ward was Scut Farkus in there, and he was a great character that supported everything else. But man, I can't take responsibility for it. I don't know if you knew this, but back then we didn't have cell phones or computers. What does that mean? That means it costs a lot of money to make a phone call. What does that mean? Well, when the movie's not in Hollywood, the studio executives are not up your butt. Bob Clark goes all the way over to Cleveland, all the way to Toronto, and no one from Hollywood land is annoying him. He's making his movie, his way. Now, on the flip side, when we made this movie, we shot it in Bulgaria, and the people from Warner Brothers and Legendary, God bless them, well, they could call, text, Skype, Zoom, 24 hours a day, and be up the director's butt. And every time at the end of the day that they would finish shooting, that footage was visible. 15,000 miles away. I don't know geography, so I apologize. But whatever the distance is between Bulgaria and Los Angeles, we can be looking at it right away. So the director is now working the politics and making sure everybody's happy with every decision. That's gotta suck. That's because really hard.
The way you illustrated that, it was almost, well, not almost, it is. The director back then was untouchable. Now the director's job is like being a U.S. senator, working both sides.
Yeah. Well said. They had to really walk a lot of fine lines, and especially you're looking at a movie that, believe this or not, when they made the film, originally they're like, well, we have to make a movie that is going to appeal to people who have never seen the first one. And you're like, why? If you've never seen the first movie, A Christmas Story, why would you bother going to see A Christmas Story Christmas? I wouldn't.
But you gotta, you know why?
Also,
I'm gonna tell you why.
Okay, go ahead. You go ahead.
Because I feel like over the last couple of years, when you go see Transformers, when you go see Marvel, when you see other films, you're not just attracting the kids of today, you're also looping in their parents. And you're setting the stage for nostalgia and that bonding time between the parent and the kid. So it's both. It's not just the kids spending the money, it's the parents spending the money for nostalgia's sake.
Okay. I hear you, and let's raise that even another moment higher. We're talking about giant IPs like Transformers and the MCU. People go to see a Transformers movie, and I got to be honest, I think they all pretty much suck after the first one that I did.
Right.
And that's not, again, because I was in it, although, come on, I was fantastic. But it's because back then, nobody had ever seen anything like that.
Right.
And now you've seen it everywhere. You see it in TV shows. It doesn't really blow the doors off. It's just more and more spectacle. The last one, the Beast Wars one, I saw it on a plane. And what was interesting to me was the fact that there were no name actors in there. Mm-hmm. There were no actors like Tom Cruise. There was nobody to carry a movie. The movie was not sold or made or distributed based upon the quality of the caliber of the actors. The actors seemed to do a fine job in it. Good for them. But nobody's like, that. I can't name that actor. And that may be because of my age. I'm well aware of that. But on the flip side, I can't say, yeah, look at the 20 movies that guy started, like a Tom Cruise. The point being is, they're tentpole pictures that are big, flashy stuff. This is a Christmas story. This is a Christmas story that became an American tradition, not because it was successful in theaters. Okay? It sucked in theaters. When A Christmas Story came out, it bombed. It came out 2 years in a row. The first year, Leonard Maltin canned it. The second year, Leonard Maltin came out and said, I stand corrected, it's a great film. Guess what? It didn't make any money, dude. There was no advertising budget behind it. There was no big promotion behind it. It died. It died a fast, quick death. The only reason A Christmas Story got made at all is because Bob Clark had done Porky's, which had blown the doors off and made a ton of money, and they wanted him to do Porky's too because he owned the rights. And he said he wouldn't do it until he got to make A Christmas Story. So they were being leveraged by him. Cool. Right. The movie failed, dude. The movie failed. Then it started getting sold on VHS. Back when VHS tapes were not, you download a movie for $5.99 on video on demand or $19.99 if it's brand new. No, dude. VHS tape back then was $100. Back when $100 now is the equivalent of $300. Okay, so that's a big deal. And then people started trading them around because you'd have the VHS collection and you share it with somebody. Cool. And then MGM went bankrupt. It went bankrupt. So it sold off its library and it was bought by Turner Network Television. And then I'm sure you've heard of It's a Wonderful Life, right? You've heard of the movie It's a Wonderful Life? Yes?
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm listening.
Yes.
Yes.
So here's the thing is, do you know why that movie played a marathon every single year for decades?
Why?
Because it ran out of copyright. So what happens is if you're going to play a movie on television, you got to pay the people who made the movie. They copyrighted. But if the copyright runs out, then anybody can play it. Mm-hmm. It's free. Mm-hmm. So that movie, It's a Wonderful Life, got played on television around the country every Christmas, not because people like the movie. Hey, it's a great movie. But it got played because it was free, and there were no advertisers paying for advertising space on television at that time. And the FCC required that you play something.
Educational.
Right? It's what you learn. Yeah. It's just magic. It's this magical perfect storm. So for It's a Wonderful Life, the independent station owners were like, well, if we pay for something to go on the television and no advertiser will pay us, we're going to get screwed. And we're here to make money. So what do we put on? It's a Wonderful Life. Costs us no money. Nobody's going to advertise. Fine. Because of that model, when TNT bought the library from MGM, they're like, hey, we've got this movie, A Christmas Story, that we got for basically free. We're going to air it on a 24-hour marathon because nobody advertises during Christmas.
Because nobody's watching TV.
Right. And this way, we don't lose any money and we don't get fined by the FCC. Don't press the button, play the movie. Little did they know We started a tradition that at a certain point in 2008, the 8 o'clock screening of A Christmas Story had more people watching it than the Super Bowl.
Shut up.
That's bananas. Dude, the numbers. There were Nelson numbers, Nelson ratings back in the day when that was a thing. So it took off on a life of its own. It was this perfect decision by the American audiences to fall in love with a film. And therein lies my argument with you. My argument is the movie was made in American tradition, not by a studio jamming it down your throat with Happy Meals and T-shirts and billboards and commercials. It was chosen by Americans. White, black, pink, brown, orange, banana color, I don't give a shit. Whatever color, race, religion, Jews, Muslims, Christians, whatever. That Christmas, people loved the movie because it wasn't about a religion. It wasn't about Christmas. It was about a family coming together in hard times, supporting one another. There's no magical Santa Claus. There's no with special powers that gives you all your presents. There's none of that horse crap. It's real America. What we really go through is we're supposed to want things, we don't get them. What we get is casserole and cabbage and meatloaf because we can't afford it because we're broke 90% of the goddamn time. And the family comes together, and Christmas was the family supporting one another when times suck and making it work. And that's America. And America chose this film, not the studios, not Hollywood. Families chose this movie. And that's why I disagree with you. I would say that movie should have been made without Hollywood sticking their big fat nose on those people are. I meet those people all the time. I literally had 80-year-old men walk up when I'm signing autographs, raising money for charities. And they come up and they say, "Oh, where are the kids from A Christmas Story?" I go, "Sir, that's us, sir." He goes, "Well, it can't possibly be. You'd be my age because I was the kid's age in the 40s." I'm like, "No, it actually took place in the 40s." So we've got guys who were kids then with their sons, their sons' sons, and their sons' sons' sons. 4 generations. 4 generations.
Okay.
Yeah. They picked this movie. That's why this film, A Christmas Story, is in the Library of Congress as one of the top 100 most important pieces of American cinema from the last 100 years. Right there with Citizen Kane, buddy. That's also why we're in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. That's the thing. That wasn't done by a studio. That was done by the American public. All facets of them, year after year. That's who chose the movie.
That's about as meatloaf as mashed potatoes as it comes, sir.
Baby, meatloaf to the soul.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. It's an honor. That's the part of it that is people don't really understand. I'd love to be Tom Cruise. That's great. I'd love to be wealthy. That sounds awesome. But on the flip side, I get to be part of something that I didn't really earn. You know, it's an honor, but it's my life. It's a strange thing to put into words because it's how I'll be remembered, and I'm just lucky to be part of it. And it's every day somebody talks to me about how they watch it with their grandparents, or they grew up watching it, or they share it with their children. Mm-hmm. Nobody says that about Transformers, buddy. Once.
Yeah. No, man, that's real. That's real. I appreciate it. You pretty much answered all my questions, but I am curious in researching for this interview. It's my understanding that only 4 of the characters from the original were in the sequel, including you.
Peter, me, uh, Randy,
Mm-hmm.
Grover's in there, Schwartz, and Flick. All six of us were in it.
Well, math wasn't my best subject growing up, but I will ask, what was that reunion like for you guys?
It was crazy. I think because time has passed and I'm 54 years old now. I think there is an appreciation. I think there was a greater appreciation for the rarity of the opportunity, the fleeting nature of life, and the experiences you get to enjoy that are rare. And so I did not take any of it for granted. I enjoyed every second of it that I could, and I mean a lot of it. We were in Bulgaria. I don't speak Bulgarian or Russian or whatever language that was around me. It was COVID times, the harsh COVID times. We were getting tested 3 times a week. It was ridiculous. The city itself in Sofia, Bulgaria, they had like a 20% inoculation rate. So, the risks of going out and getting COVID were pretty high. And whether or not COVID, some people get deathly ill, some people don't even notice. But the problem is you get a positive test, and all of a sudden you're on lockdown for 5 to 10 days, and you're screwing up the entire production schedule. So it's a domino effect of damage. There was nothing to do for me there besides go to the gym and hang out with the boys and have coffee and talk and go for walks. And so my attitude was like, hell yeah, let's just enjoy the heck out of this, knowing it will never happen again. It's rare air to get to do it. So just be grateful, show gratitude, and then be present. It was awesome.
So the rare air part is what you talked about. I think is pretty cool. On Christmas, do you actually watch the movie at least once on Christmas Day?
No. I see enough of it in scattered pieces at all the events that I do. It's also like, if I'm going to watch the movie, the last time I watched it, I think I watched it about 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. But I prefer to watch it in one sitting, from beginning to end, because as I age, I see it through a different lens, if that makes sense. I think I saw it like 3 years ago. Also, I'm a little kid in there, and I'm not a little kid anymore. So every time you're watching, you're like, God damn, I'm old. Like, that's all it does. Is, at a certain point, it's just insulting you. But, you know what I mean? I'm more of a diehard on Christmas guy or Shawshank Redemption.
No, those are 2 excellent clips or 2 excellent films. I also think, I'm not an actor, but I am on camera. And so to me, I don't like watching myself on camera, old clips after a while. I can't sit and watch them.
It doesn't bother me. That part doesn't bother me, but I was 13, man. So that's 41 years ago for me. So, yeah. But it's still a great movie.
What are you most thankful for this Christmas?
That this year will be over.
That's real.
This year sucked. So fucking bad, dude. I really hated this year. I'm grateful for my wife. She is a fantastic human being. Lovely, beautiful, funny as hell. I just learned how to make banana bread, which I think is going to make me fat as can be. I'm grateful for being sober and being present as much as I can be and being responsible. But this year sucked ass. I really hated this year.
Yeah, it was rough for people in your industry quite a bit.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's part of it. Alzheimer's is another part of it. So if there's anybody out there, family members going through it, my condolences. I'm sorry for you, brother and sister. It is brutal. Um, yeah.
Well, you and your family will be in my prayers. I hope that 2024 is much better, light years better.
You too. Yeah, that would be great.
Peace of mind, financially, happiness, and more is what I'm wishing you all 2024.
Well, thank you very much. And I've heard that so on the marathon for A Christmas Story this year, they'll be playing Christmas Story Christmas will be added to the marathon at about 8 or 10 o'clock at night.
Really?
I'm excited to see how people respond to that. Yeah, it's gonna be they're rolling it in. And then I just got told by a buddy of mine, Canyon, that's his real name, super cool guy. He was in a movie the other night, and he saw a trailer for A Christmas Story, the original one, in theaters for a couple of nights. Fathom Events is doing that from like the 8th through the 10th. I'm telling you, none of this makes me any money, but it would be a fun thing for people to do if they want to go check it out. But yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. It keeps
Right.
some level of tradition going, but also it brings families together. And
Yeah, yeah. You get to see Melinda Dillon and Jeremy Gavin's performance in that film. It's so cool because as you get older, you watch how they perform as parents and what a great couple they are and how they take care of one another and the subtle nuance as they're looking after their kids. You see it from different eyes as you grow up, and it's really delightful.
yes, especially the cursing.
Yeah. So apparently the cursing was written very specifically. I just learned that from Peter. He was explaining that when he was punching me, all that cursing was like, you got to listen to it. And I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was telling us we were doing a panel in Cleveland, and he was explaining how Gene Shepard had written down. It was like the Fraga, Diga, Durkin, Dark, but it had to be very specific for every consonant. And it was when you hear that again, realize he's not making it up. He's not improvising. There's no riffing. That is exactly written per letter the way Gene Shepard wanted it. That's pretty amazing.
It's timeless,
really funny,
and it's clean. It's like listening to a Will Smith album in the 90s, not pre Jada and Chris Rock,
Yeah, like listening to Bill Cosby, before the roof and all.
Yes, all of that.
Yes, yeah. Bill Cosby was my jam, man. I remember sitting as a kid. I don't know if you did this, but listening for Christmas. It was visit my grandparents in Long Island, New York.
Mm-hmm.
My mom. And I'd sit down and getting the Bill Cosby comedy album out, and sitting down around the record player, just listening to it, laughing so hard I cried. Thought I was going to pee my pants. Like 7 years old, just like it was the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah, Bill had a lot of hits. Richard Pryor had a lot of hits.
Yeah.
I actually knew Bill when I was a kid, when I got my start doing radio with the Nets. Bill Cosby was a minority owner of the Nets when they were in New Jersey, and actually did a quick promo on NBA Inside stuff with him as a kid. So I used to see Bill Cosby at Nets games as a kid.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so you know how like the rapper Jay-Z had a minority ownership with the Nets and he used to sit courtside? Bill Cosby had a similar stake with the Nets before Jay-Z did. So similar role.
Oh, neat. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's nice to go back in time when you didn't know anybody was being potentially a horrible jackass behind the scenes. So that moment of innocence was still pure, and you got to enjoy the art of their comedy or of their music.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, then you get older and you have your wits about you, and then you got dissect things. And we sit in interviews like this where you learn more that you didn't know, whether it was the 35 millimeter camera with Tarantino versus the digital and more. You encompassed everything in this interview, and the good news is you are off the hot seat.
I'm off what now?
You're off the hot seat.
Yay! Well, you made it a very comfortable hot seat, so thank you very much.
Brother, thank you as always for your time and your insight. And make sure that you all check out A Christmas Story and the sequel today, Christmas, on Turner. They got you covered. Brother, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everybody.